Medical Intuitive Insights with your host, Dr. Gloria Warren, is a program that presents topics on medical intuition, holistic opportunities outside of mainstream society, and scientific research as applied today. Topics range from online intuitive readings to interviews unveiling alternative healing modalities and discussing them with inspirational leaders. Dr. Warren is the bridge within holistic arts while stressing the balance between the spiritual and physical self. So now, please welcome the host of Medical Intuitive Insights, Dr. Gloria Warren.
What if your chronic illness isn't random, but predictable? What if your zip code influences your health more than your DNA? And what if artificial intelligence can already see environmental patterns affecting your body before symptoms appear? Welcome to Medical Intuitive Insights. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Warren. Today we're talking about something powerful and frankly, way overdue. Artificial intelligence, environmental exposure, and chronic disease. We're not lacking the data. We are lacking integration, and AI may be that bridge. Chronic disease is not random. Let's start with something foundational. Chronic disease like diabetes, autoimmune disorders, neurological decline, and certain cancers have risen dramatically over the last 50 years. That's why our topic today is AI and environmental health, the hidden data behind chronic disease. I mean, our genetics have not changed that fast. Our environment has. We're exposed daily to air pollution, chemical residues in food, microplastics. By the way, you can find my microplastics show on my site. So keep it in mind, it is well worth watching. It's one of my boot camp shows. So also chemical residues in food include endocrine disruptors, PFAS compounds, processed food additives. Chronic stress also plays into that, and sedentary built environments. So let's look at some of these things. Air pollution. All right, it includes particulate matter. They call it PM 2.5 and PM 10. Nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, ozone, we hear it all the time, volatile organic compounds, VOCs, by the way, is what they call that in short, and industrial emissions. And Lord knows we have enough of that in every single country around this world. So fine particulate matter, that's the PM 2.5, is especially concerning because it's small enough to penetrate deep into the lungs and enter the bloodstream. Once in circulation, it contributes to systemic inflammation, oxidative stress, and endothelial dysfunction, and increased cardiovascular risk. By the way, they have proven it is found in the embryos and the placenta of newborns. So, keep that in mind. Biological impact. Air pollution has been linked to increased risk of stroke and heart disease, worsening asthma and COPD. Insulin resistance, neural inflammation, and cognitive decline. These things I feel are becoming an epidemic, if not a pandemic. They are popping up. Cases are multiplying all over the globe. The inflammatory cascade triggered by chronic inhalation, exposure, it all contributes to vascular damage and immune dysregulation. So today, the urban centers, highways adjacent to communities, and industrial zones experience higher particulate exposure. Satellite-based air monitoring and wearable pollution sensors are now generating continuous data streams. There's just so much of it. So what is the AI connection? AI integrates satellites, air data with hospital admission rates. That's where the epidemiologist in me comes out. We use that to predict respiratory and cardiovascular surges. The time lag modeling shows that long-term exposure correlates with increased chronic disease burden years later. It's not like overnight. At least we hope it won't be, but it does show up years later in the data. Something else we need to consider too are the residues in chemicals in the foods. There's another show I've done on that. Agricultural pesticides, that's a big one. I wrote a whole book with Dr. Cynthia DiNardo. She's the agriculturalist, and she's so well known in Colorado and has done so much to help use natural pesticides on the industrial farms. Amazing woman. But herbicides, fungicides, and heavy metals can remain on produce or accumulate in soil and water systems. They've actually found like glyphosates, organophosphates, and neonicotinoids, I think that's how you say it, are among widely studied agricultural chemicals. Most of these chemicals they found too leave remnants inside the fruits and the vegetables. Keep that in mind, especially if you're having some medical problems. So what is the biological impact? Chronic low-dose exposure may disrupt gut microbiota, alter mitochondrial function. Remember the mitochondrials inside the cells? And, we need to keep healthy mitochondria, and it alters that function. It also increases oxidative stress, can affect the endocrine signaling. Heavy metals such as cadmium and arsenic may accumulate over time. It's not something your body can just get rid of. So food residue databases track chemical limits, but mixture effects remain understudied. Processed food supply chains increase cumulative exposure through preservatives and packaging leachates. I did a whole show on plastics too. What are you waiting for? Go in there and watch it. These things are right in your own kitchen. Let's get them out of there. We don't need that type of thing in our kitchen. So what is the AI connection? So AI can correlate agricultural chemical density by region with long-term health trends. Now, maybe not all the countries are doing this yet, but maybe they should. Machine learning models identified food system exposure clusters as well, tied to metabolic disorders. You can know what exactly is around you. I'll even tell you where to find that information a little later in the show. So here we go. Microplastics are plastic fragments smaller than 5 millimeters, originating from packaging, textiles, tire wear, degraded consumer plastic, our clothes we wear. Okay. What are you wearing today? I always ask, what are you wearing today? Are you wearing natural clothing? Are you wearing cottons? Are you wearing wool? Are you wearing silk? Think about natural clothing, because these chemicals in these artificial made materials, our body absorbs them through our skin. So they're now detected in food, water, air, and even human blood and placental tissues. I mentioned that already. Biological impact. So how does this affect us? It causes the inflammatory response. There's that word again, inflammation. Can carry absorbed toxic chemicals, disrupt gut barrier integrity, act as endocrine disrupting vectors. Research is ongoing, but concern centers around cumulative exposure and chemical absorption capacity. Our skin, the air, things we eat. Think about that. Today's application, let's talk more about bottled water, seafood, salt, processed foods containing measurable plastic particles, textile fibers, once again, AI connection, geographic. All models can track plastic production, environmental degradation patterns, and ingested estimates to predict exposure density geographically. So whether you're here in the United States or in India, you can find out what is in the air you're breathing, what is in your food. So endocrine disrupting chemicals, they call them EDCs, interfere with hormonal signaling. Common examples include bisphenols, phthalates, parabens, and certain flame retardants. The flame retardants we put on our infants, that are on your infants' clothing, that are probably being absorbed through their delicate skin. So what is the biological impact? Thyroid dysfunction, reproductive health issues, metabolic regulation issues, and neurodevelopment issues. Unlike classical toxicology, EDCs often inhibit non-linear dose responses. Today's application of EDCs are found in plastics, cosmetics, food packaging, receipts, and household dust. Yeah, there's a chemical on all the receipts you get. We've been touching them for how many decades? Yes, I want my receipt. Take your receipt. What do you do with it? Make sure to take your receipt and fold the print inside. Don't touch it. Okay. Goes through your skin. Yes, they found that out too. AI can model nonlinear dose response curves and identify population level correlations between EDC exposure and metabolic or reproductive disorders. They know before we do. PFAS compounds, that's the per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, are synthetic chemicals used in nonstick cookware. You know, we got those dark frying pans with the nonstick. We love it. Well, think again. Firefighting foam saves lives, but we got to be careful about firemen and where it's being used. Even in home fire extinguishers can be a problem. Water-resistant fabrics and food packaging. They're known as forever chemicals due to environmental persistence. They don't just go away. The rain cannot just poof, wash them away. Doesn't happen. So PFAS exposure has been associated with different problems like immune suppression, thyroid dysfunction, elevated cholesterol. How many of us are on doses of whatever to take our cholesterol down? I know I do cinnamon and berberine. Works wonderful for me. And I watch what I eat, of course. It also causes certain cancers, though, and reduced vaccine response. They bioaccumulate and have long biological half-lives inside of our own bodies. Drinking water contamination has been documented time and time again in numerous municipalities. Blood serum studies show widespread population exposure. Yep, bottled water. AI maps PFAS water contamination against disease incident clusters. It does. And predicts remediation priority zones. So we got to get into where you can find that information. So processed food additives, ultra-processed food, artificial flavors, preservatives, emulsifiers, etc., etc. Biological impact, potential outcomes, low-grade systemic inflammation, insulin resistance, altered microbiome diversity, increased caloric density without nutritional benefits. So if I found out that I've been exposed to high doses in my area, you know, I may just take out that plain plain yogurt that doesn't have sugar in it and has a massive array of different healthy bacteria, because that way there it keeps my microbiome diversity intact, or at least it helps, right? Ultra-processed food now constitute over 50% of our caloric intake globally in many industrial nations. The AI connection, AI nutritional modeling predicts metabolic disease patterns based on food supply composition and purchasing trends, especially in food deserts. You know what a food desert is? Areas where there's no grocery stores around, so the people need to buy the cheapest foods or any foods. They're going to Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Dollar Bills, and all these areas. Those are their grocery stores, and you know that that's a lot of processed foods. There aren't any real fresh foods and produce available to them. So chronic stress was one of those other topics we started with. Chronic psychosocial stress activities and hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, increasing cortisol production. So it affects your brain, your whole brain, chronic stress. Biological impact, sustained cortisol elevation, impaired immune function, accelerated cellular aging, increased blood sugar, disrupt sleep cycles, which can then lead to other things. So chronic stress amplifies inflammatory response triggered by environmental exposure. So in today's application, economic instability, digital overload, and urban density contribute to sustained stress burden. So how can we use AI? Wearable behavioral analytics can model stress patterns, populations, integrating cortisol proxies and environmental data. Maybe we can do something about it. Now, but the one thing, those sedentary built environments, urban design strongly influences movement, sunlight exposure, air quality, and food access. Biological impact, though, for the sedentary environments, insulin resistance, cardiac obesity, cardiac exposure. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. And don't go away. You're going to hear a lot of things that in the next session. Be right there.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. Before we continue, if this conversation is expanding how you think about health and AI, I invite you to explore the work we're doing at Sustainability Management Institute. At SMI, we train professionals in AI-driven environmental modeling, water and wastewater analytics, giving you the AI, food system sustainability, environmental health consulting. Because sustainability is not a trend, it's a system of discipline. So let's talk now about how AI detects environmental patterns. Well, let me explain this simply. Artificial intelligence is extremely good at one thing: pattern recognition. If we feed AI data from pollution monitors, food supply testing, community health records, wastewater analysis, demographic stress indicators, it can identify clusters. For example, certain neighborhoods may show higher air pollution, higher endocrine disruptor exposure, and higher metabolic disease rates. AI does not assume causation. It doesn't think like that. It doesn't work like that. It identifies correlation patterns worth investigating, but only does what you tell it to do. So it also analyzes time. Chronic diseases often develop years after exposure. AI can look backwards. It can look at the old data. It can detect 10 years off of the exposure spikes, decrease rates, increase. This is called time lag modeling. Humans struggle to track 10 or 20, even 20-year exposure. The relationships. AI does not, though, do image integration, chemical exposure, food quality, socioeconomic stress, built environmental design, and things of that nature. It does, in this model, the technical program, we're going to teach how exposure data is integrated, how machine learning detects environmental clusters, how wastewater, sorry, I lost. We're going to, it's designed to certain, we're going to discuss how wastewater and everything gets the data and where the data goes. So it's really important to know that all the data from these different systems working out there collecting data, it actually goes somewhere. It goes to data warehouses, and AI can analyze it for you. Certain neighborhoods may show higher pollution, higher endocrine disruption exposure, higher metabolic disease rates. I'd like to check those food deserts. AI does not assume causation, like I said, it just shows correlation patterns. 10 years after exposure, 10 or 20 years, yes, it does. Now imagine integrating chemical exposure, food quality, social economic stress, built environmental design into one system model and asking AI to give you a graph that puts all of those substrates into that one graph. And it shows you where they fall on that graph, as well as the diseases that have rose. And some of them may be dropping. You know, it all depends. You got to keep an open mind. It's the beginning of what we call cumulative environmental load modeling. Not one toxin, total burden. It's a whole conglomerate of just about everything. So if you want to learn more about that, visit Sustainability Management Institute. That's smicertification.com. You can contact me at 715-892-7500. I can discuss that with you and see if we can find a place for you to fit into the system that you can help. So can AI quantify toxic load? Let's address the big question. Can artificial intelligence actually calculate toxic load? That's interesting. Short answer, it can estimate probability risk. You know, so it's not actually saying that it can do it. It's saying that it can estimate probability risk. And that means that it can tell us what the probabilities are, but it doesn't mean that it's the final end all. So I had some graphs here, but I think we're going to pass on those. And let me just pull up one more thing and see if we can go in there. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Okay, so as far as the clusters, it can take a neighborhood and it can show higher pollution perhaps, or lower pollution, higher endocrine disruption. It can detect the 10 years, the spikes and the decreases. So let's talk really fast about where the data is housed, where it's stored. That's an important factor because we're all from different countries probably, and who knows where we're all from. But in the United States, we have the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. That data is stored in their AQS database. You can go in there and you can look at things and pull data out of those data sets and use them for your research. airnow.gov, is real-time air monitoring. So you can check real-time, and then you can check the National Emissions Inventory, NEI. I do believe they also go into all the past data that you can pull from, like you could tell AI, take the last 10 years, you can do a span and pull it up and add it all together. EPA also has EJ screen, environmental justice mapping, and that'll probably show all those food deserts and things of that nature. Now, that's in the United States. That's if you're doing research here, where I'm located. Now, globally, there's the World Health Organization, the Global Air Quality Database. There's some good data there. The European Environmental Agency, EEA, Airbase it's called, AIRBASE. And there's some wonderful environmental data there that you can pull, use for research, and play around with and see what your statistics can show you. NASA satellite-derived air pollution data sets. It's MODIS, MODIS. They also have a second one called Sentinel. But MODIS and Sentinel can actually provide you that information that you're looking for. I mean, these data sets are amazing. They really do hold value. So I want, love for everybody to go in and just play around with it and see what you come up with. So We have things that are available on those sites, like the PM 2.5 and the PM 10 levels, the ozone concentrations, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, geographic pollutant density mapping. These data sets are downloadable and AI ready. So you can do some food supply testing. That's another one. So where's that data stored? In the United States, that's easy. Food and Drug Administration. And it shows the pesticide residue monitoring program. I think I'm going to look at that again today when I get off here. United States Department of Agriculture, Pesticides Data Program, PDP. There's some data in there. FDA Total Diet Study. They do studies on the diet, and there's some data with them. We have global places too. European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, chemical monitoring reports. If you need a list of these, I think I'll put a list in the comments at the end of the show. In the next 5 hours, I'll do that. FAO, another place for global. FAO and the WHO, the World Health Organization, joint meeting on pesticide residues. That was an interesting meeting, and they get involved with what is being shown, what's coming up in the data. So you may want to look into that. Maybe you can get a better lens at the area you live in. What's available, residues levels by food category, chemical specific testing results, annual compliance reports, geographic production origin. These data sets allow exposure density modeling. Also, community health records. Where is the data stored? The public data sets, the de-identified data sets, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. It's called the Wonder database. Do you ever wonder where that database is? Okay. Behavioral risk factor surveillance systems is also out there. A National Health and Nutrition Exam Survey, the CMS Medicare data set. These all help us to figure out what's going on around us. Academic access, all the U.S. research program, NIH. I use NIH on a daily basis just about. State Health Department epidemiology reports, hospital discharge databases. That varies by state, and the information level varies by state. But you can see, how many people entered with X disease, how many people entered with a Y problem and Z problem and whatever. So what's available? Disease prevalence, hospital admission rates, mortality statistics, chronic disease tracking by county, biomarker data. These data sets can geographically be linked to pollution and food exposure data. So wastewater analysis. We have a wastewater expert on our SMI team. That's Dr. Brandon Pearson. And he is phenomenal. He's almost finished with his book, which will be out probably about 30 days. Where's the wastewater analysis data stored? In the United States, the Center for Disease and Control and Prevention and the National Wastewater Surveillance System. State environmental departments have data on it, and municipal wastewater treatment plants also carry their own data. You may not be able to get into all the data with the municipal wastewater treatment plants, but you can sure and heck try. Research institution, university-led wastewater epidemiology labs, environmental chemistry research labs. There's a lot of research studies that are being done on these things continually or sporadically, but there are always recent studies on that. Globally, where do you find your wastewater data? The WHO, wastewater monitoring initiatives. There's another one, the World Health Organization. European wastewater monitoring networks. Ask AI, by the way. We're talking about AI. Ask AI if you don't know where to go. They tell you the viral RNA fragments, pharmaceutical metabolites, hormonal byproducts, and drug consumption indicators. It's rapidly expanding AI integrated data set category. It's fast. And democratic stress indicators. There's all these various areas that you can look into, but we're going to have to take another commercial break. And yeah, when we return, can AI actually calculate your toxic load in each one of us? Interesting. We'll be right back.
Master of words, powerful player, What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Today's episode is brought to you by Sustainability Management Institute and their mini course, AI and Environmental Health Analytics. It's a 4-module technical program. We teach how exposure data is integrated, how much machine learning detects environmental clusters, how wastewater surveillance predicts trends, and how ethical governance protects community, just on the few topics. So it's designed for sustainability professionals, public health leaders, environmental health consultants that are ready to operate at systems level. We have all the other courses too. Check out smicertification.com. So, can AI quantify toxic load? Let's address this big question. Can artificial intelligence calculate toxic load? Short answer, it can estimate the probability risk. Here's how. Some toxins accumulate in fat tissue. Others are stored in liver or neural membranes. A lot of memory issues coming up and popping up in the world today. Just think about that while you can think about that. Some of these chemicals interfere with hormones at extremely low doses. Yes, low doses. So not everything's measured on the same scale. Now imagine AI incorporating chemical half-life. Chemical half-life is the amount of time it takes for half of a substance to be eliminated or broken down in the body or environment. Substances with long half-lives can persist for years, increase the likelihood of accumulation and long-term biological effects. Now imagine radiation, what that half-life is. Storage potential, another thing. Storage potential refers to chemicals' tendency to accumulate in the body tissue. Where does it accumulate? Fat. You know that already. Liver, bone. Rather than being rapidly excreted, compounds with high storage potential can build up over time and be released later during metabolic stress or weight loss. So you ever see somebody lose a lot of weight and all of a sudden they start getting very sick? Maybe there was something built up in their fat, some chemicals of sorts. You can't just lose weight, folks. You need to detox, and I don't mean the detox that you're hearing trending online all the time. I mean a gentle helping your body to detox itself while you are losing weight. Call me if you need. I'm here. Exposure duration, that's another thing. Exposure duration does make sense. It's the length of time an individual is in contact with a chemical pollutant or environmental stressor. Longer or repeated exposures increase cumulative burden, even when an individual exposure is considered low dose. Any dose leaves a burden. remnant behind. Metabolic variability describes the differences among individuals in how efficiently they absorb, detox, and eliminate substances. Factors such as genetics, age, nutrition, liver function, overall health influence how the body processes environmental exposures. Another area you don't see in research very often, but it is shown in research, is your culture. Different cultures eliminate substances from the body at different rates, different pathways, and different timelines. So that's something too to be considered. That, for instance, an African American man, we found that they can eliminate through sweat more than the Japanese person, but not just eliminate, it's the amount that they lose. So body will accumulate drugs faster in somebody who's Japanese rather than African American. So, but that's just a basic correlation. There's other correlations that go along with that. Stress amplification is another one, refers to the way the chronic psychological or physiological stress can intensify the biological effects of environmental exposure. Sustained stress hormones such as cortisol can increase inflammation and reduce detoxification. It can reduce the efficiency, magnifying a toxic impact. Generally speaking, AI can incorporate these data sets, simulate how toxins accumulate and are released over time. It can generate probability curves, not destiny, probability. Think of it like cardiovascular risk scores. If your risk increases to 35%, it doesn't mean you will develop the disease. It means intervention may be wise. Be cautious. Things shift healthcare from waiting for disease to mitigating exposure. That's a very big topic, I think. When you're going to use AI to bring up data sets, let's say you find glyphosates are readily on everything you're eating, that are all the produce you're eating. You can mitigate that by doing a glyphosate detox. And yes, there is such a thing. That's something that we can talk about if you need. But every single chemical, there's different ways to detox. There's different pathways to detox. It's not just through your colon or through your bladder. Liver has to process everything in order for it to be detoxed, but you can detox it in other ways too, even sweat. There are different ways to release different chemicals from the human body. So something just to keep in mind. Now, like I said, if you're going to be using AI for epidemiology and checking out your zip code, your area, or globally your region is more what you're going to be doing. That region, you got to realize it's not a destiny. Just because something's in the region doesn't mean you're going to get cancer from it. It is going to heighten your probability of getting cancer from it, but that's what AI does. It shows you the probabilities, but only if you know what to ask. So asking the right question, every word means something. So you need to be kind of a wordsmith. Choose the right words cautiously. Make sure you're using the correct words when you use AI. So you pull up the correct data that you're seeking. You don't want to come up with something and say, yeah, give me all the people that were swimming and drowned last year. And then you come up with this data and you start using this data and you're like, oh gosh, I forgot to ask about region. Oh boy, well, that's a big change. That's a big difference. You need to ask specifically what you want. And it's not a mind reader. Keep that in mind too. AI is not a mind reader. It only does what you ask of it. And it doesn't know exactly what you are trying to do. If you can talk to AI, you can maybe explain it more readily. That's always a wonderful thing. I think, Grok is out there, and Grok is a wonderful tool. One of my colleagues, he uses Grok because that's what he likes. I find that any tool is good to use. I've used so many, I don't even remember their names. But AI has been around a long time. It is not new. I mean, the companies have been using AI for various things for decades, but it has been open to the public for data now for just It's not just the last couple of years. It has been longer than that. I know that because I heard somebody was using AI to write his term papers, and I got very upset with that person. Something to talk about in the next section. But been around for a long time. The data's there. I can mark the data. I'll put in the comments section under the video once it's published, so that you have where to find this data. I'll go ahead and post that for everybody so you can see that. That's only some basics, though. Globally, there's so many other places where data is being used, and those are the only ones that I use. So that's what I use AI to find out where more data can be for your region. Start with a very wide search using the World Health Organization, and then narrow it down, maybe get to your specific region to see what is in my water. I don't move anywhere until I check their water reports. I know that sounds strange, but I don't. That's just the way I am. I'm not going to say there's a place in the middle of you. I won't live in this one place because of the radiation that comes off the mountains. Different places have different types of things that expose them. I'm very particular. So keep that in mind. And I do want to mention one more thing here. Good, we still have time. So when you look at this and you start seeing things, you can start doing things for yourself. You can, let's say cardiovascular risk is higher because of a toxin that's in your water. Then you want to start watching more of what you eat. Maybe do something to help your liver clear your blood better and filter it out. And same with your kidneys, and get your cholesterol down. I take berberine and cinnamon. Cholesterol's fine. It's great. They couldn't believe it. So, but there's some natural things. I'm also a neurologist, so I can say those things. So, try to stay on that level. And the reason why you're looking up the data is not just to know, it's also so you become more preventive in your own health. So AI health analytics include technical frameworks, applied modeling examples, environmental justice mapping. And I go into that because we're going to go into ethics and justice in the next section. Environmental justice mapping, it shows you where the world does not have a very just food system mapped out around the globe. It just doesn't. There's areas with barely any food. There's areas with too much food. Here in the United States, there are areas where people are starving. There are areas where people are starving here in the United States. Nobody realizes that. They need to realize every country has areas where people are starving. And then there's other areas where they're throwing away 45% of their food. Oh my gosh. If I was a child and doing this, my parents would have crucified me. That would have been the end of that. They never threw out any food. I mean, if you had leftovers, you recycled it into a meatloaf, or you recycled it into soup or stew or something else. And these things can be done. People they're not doing them much anymore. They're buying their food pre-made. So I know that this data is going to be starting to reflect areas that they're not going to be happy with. Cook natural foods. Don't just go out. We need to think of our bodies, be more family oriented. Show your kids how to cook from scratch. Make sure things are extra clean. Clean your rice, rinse it at least 3 times if possible. Rinse it. Yes, get all those heavy metals off of them. And yes, there's heavy metals on rice. So everything has problems nowadays. I think we need to target policies to try and get these problems to become more ethical and better for society. But we're not going to get anywhere without opening our mouths and doing something about it. So we're going to take a third commercial break. We're going to go more into ethics, justice, and public health. Very interesting things coming up in this next section. So stay right there. We'll be right back.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
Welcome back to Medical Intuitive Insights. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Warren. I just want to reiterate one thing here. That is, AI can generate probability curves, not destiny. It can't tell you you're going to die of something. It gives you a probability of what's in your region, the possibilities. So keep that in mind. Don't get too upset if you see things in your region that you didn't know about, but remember, you can always do something about everything, or anything, I should say. So if this level of systems thinking resonates with you, SMI mini course AI and Environmental Health Analytics includes technical frameworks, applied modeling examples, environmental justice mapping. Give me a call, 715-892-7500 if you're interested in that type of course. Final segment here, ethics, justice, and public health. So with great data comes great responsibility. If AI can predict environmental risks, who owns that information? Can insurance companies misuse predictive exposure scores? I think they already are. Could communities be labeled high risk without the chance for remediation funding? That sounds pretty common to me. This is where sustainability science becomes critical. Sustainability asks, who benefits? Who bears the burden? What are the long-term consequences? We must embed AI inside ethical frameworks. It's hard to do in today's world because so many companies are using it on the side to check just those very things. And it isn't, I don't feel it's ethical. I don't feel you should make somebody's insurance go up higher if just because maybe there was a shooting 5 weeks ago on the corner or something. I do think when you first buy a house, you need to check and see, do you need flood insurance? Are tornadoes covered? Things like that. But they're looking at other things. I think we need to be careful information they have and find out your information, do your research. I know I did my research before I bought this house, and I'm really glad I did. So communities leave behind biological signatures in wastewater. Hormones, metabolites, pharmaceutical traces, viral fragments. We mentioned this before. During COVID, wastewater detected viral spikes before hospitals saw surges. So we knew the surges were coming before because they found it in the water. Now imagine using that system for metabolic markers, community stress signals, public health forecasting. That is Public Health 2.0, predictive, preventive, integrated. Chronic disease may not be mysterious. It may be measurable, though. And if measurable, is it modifiable? I know it is. I know we can modify it. I know that you can speak up, you can have some policies change, you have some regulations, local regulations changed. Go to your city, township, go to their meetings, see what's going on. Are they going to be building a refinery next to your house? How do you know if you don't go? They don't report all of that until just before they want to build. They send out postcards that we're going to build this next door, if you don't mind, but everyone takes those postcards. Oh, this garbage mail, and they throw it all away. Don't do that. So we're entering a new era where environmental data, biological data, geographical data, behavioral health data, we are no longer isolated. AI integrates all of them. The question is not whether we will use this technology. The question is whether we will use it ethically. With what I was mentioning, somebody using AI to write his papers, I thought this person was very intelligent, and then it turns out that he was cheating in my book. That was not using AI intelligently. You want to use it for a paper, okay, ask it for, I think there's a division area. Get your outline. If you don't agree with what's in the outline, have AI switch it out with something that should be there instead. Get the outline, that's fine. But then do the work, do the footwork. Maybe ask AI for suggestions on where to look. And then look in NIH and different areas for that research. Do it yourself. It's fast. It's not hard. So write it on your own. You can use things like Grammarly to help you with the grammar when you're finished. You can maybe ask AI, can you find any major problems with it, so that it goes through and it can point out things too that maybe you're missing. Maybe you mentioned something in the beginning of the project and then you didn't have it in the end tied up in a tiny bow, So use it ethically. If you go to publish a book and he asks you if you used AI, answer it ethically. Don't hide it. People will know. AI has signatures. I know. I've seen them. But either way, thank you for coming today. I'm Dr. Gloria Warren. This is Medical Intuitive Insights. There for the grace of God go I, and may we stay analytical, away and sustainable on our journeys. God bless.
This has been Medical Intuitive Insights with host Dr. Gloria Warren. Tune in each week as Gloria shares over 40 years of experience and yearns to provide knowledge derived from intuition and research. Wednesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern.